Mike, I think we should start today with God Bless America. And you're going to lead it to get us started since it's the 4th of July. What a
Uh,
great song.
yeah, yeah.
You can either do God Bless America or Independence Day. You choose. All right,
Like the
ready?
movie, like I can play the movie instead,
No,
and
no.
like
Sing,
you know,
sing the song.
Will Smith, and Bill Paxton. Like I can do that. Isn't that who that was?
How much do you love Independence Day, by the way?
The movie or the holiday?
No, the holiday. Jeez.
Man, it's fun. I mean, you know what better excuse to blow off fireworks and make it rain in the sky. I don't know, man. It's pretty awesome. You get time off. We're celebrating it on a Monday this year, even though 4th of July falls on a Sunday. So
Yeah.
even as a country, we decided that we're still going to give you some time off work, buddy. So don't
Fair
you?
enough.
Well, not us,
Yeah.
but everybody else.
So just think, I was thinking earlier about what it was like, in like 1802, right?
Right.
Obviously they didn't have fireworks. They probably just shot their guns or whatever.
Well, you were alive close to back then, right? I mean, you weren't
Yes.
that far celebrating your birthday. By the way, happy birthday. Yesterday was your birthday. As you can
Yes,
see,
it
you've
was.
got your own balloons in the background like a 12-year-old girl. So congratulations on that.
Yes.
So, but yes, 1802. Sorry.
Okay, so in 1802, this had just happened, right? We are independent. Was the parties bigger? Like, did it mean more to them than it does us? Like, we once were under, British Empire or whatever, and now we're independent. I would think it was more profound then, right? I mean, we still celebrate, and it's great. I'm glad we're independent and all that, but was it bigger then?
Well, it depends on what bigger means. Were there more people? No, because there were less people. So the
No,
parties
okay.
were smaller.
Yeah.
Did it mean more? I would imagine
No.
probably so. Yeah, for sure.
I would think
Because if you're recently removed from that situation and you know what it was like before, and now you know what it's like after, then it's kind of like it's not the same thing, but you and I remember what life was like before cell phones, right? But our kids have no idea what that was like. So if you take away their cell phone, the world is over, right? I mean, we're done. But you and I existed before those things were a thing, so it's not that big of a deal for us. So it's all perspective, right?
They don't know how to go get two sticks in the backwoods and play guns and army and cowboys and Indians or whatever. Not to offend anybody. It's just a game we used to play. Sorry. All right. So yeah, I mean, yeah.
So I do want to say, I feel like we've been celebrating a lot of Donnie lately. Like we had your birthday that just happened yesterday. We had Father's Day like the weekend before that, and then I believe you were like Man of the Year with the
no doubt.
Cancer. You were Cancer Man of the Year.
Cancer Man of the Year. Cancer Man of the Year.
So like I feel like we've been heavy Donnie celebration these days. So how does that feel to be such a beloved person?
It does feel good, no doubt. It also makes me feel a little sad that I mean, all you've had is Father's Day and all this. So when are you going to do something to feel love? Like, what's your birthday or anniversary?
Well, I'm not as big of a deal as you are, though, right? Like you're more Ron Burgundy, and I'm like the other anchormen that aren't as important.
No, go Talladega Nights. I'm
Talladega
Ricky. You're a Magic Man.
Second place is the first loser, man. So that's
first, you're last.
That's me. So. None of that stuff's important. I got a birthday sometime. I don't know when it is, man. It's I gave those things up a long time ago. White beard and bald head. I'm old. That's all you need.
We
I'm
have
not told you, but I'm old.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're younger than I am. You're never going to catch me. It's impossible. It's just kind of a thing.
Well, actually, it's not impossible. So if I left the planet and went to a higher gravitational field, and your gravity spinning on the Earth, you would age slower than I would going in the other direction, or maybe it's the other way around. But anyway, it's possible. It's very unlikely, but it's possible.
Nevertheless, I'm always going to be older than you because that's never going to happen. But
you've seen Interstellar, though, right? You've seen Interstellar with Matthew McConaughey, right?
No doubt. Yes, absolutely, and it is a film. It's a
It is a
it's a
film.
video.
Yes.
It is dreamt out of someone's brain and put on screen.
Right. Right.
All right, so we talked a little bit about like, hey, what are we going to cover today? We
Yeah.
need to make sure people understand, things and stuff. That's what I put in the title today. More stuff and things from
Things and stuff.
two bozos. So, all right, Mike, why don't you kind of lead us into what we're talking? What are we covering today?
So, I want to do a little math lesson, let's call it. So,
Love math.
We talk all the time, you and I, about how the market's been with home prices going up and what's happening with rates and all that kind of stuff. But we don't always really get down into the real reality of what the numbers mean. Like when you talk about that kind of stuff, and I'm sure you hear about this a lot because I certainly do. When I talk to people and they call and say, "Hey, I know housing prices are extremely high right now, and it seems like we're in this. There's even people that think we're in a bubble." I don't agree with that, but
I don't either.
But there's certainly a lot of sentiment out there that would reflect that. So I thought we could kind of go through a few just basic, ideas on when you look at what's the better way to do it, right? You have two arguments that are happening right now. Okay, the home prices are high, right? Which they are, comparatively at least, what they've been for a while.
Yeah.
But rates are still really low. Again, we're not in the low twos like we were for a little period of time. It wasn't very long. Everybody seems to think that we were there for like 8 months. It was only for a few months, but we were there for a little bit. But we haven't been there for a little while now. Now we're in the threes, low threes, mid threes, depending on what the situation is. But still very, very low historically, and rates have been better now and for a longer period of time than they ever have. But as you and I have talked about before, we have some issues that are popping up on the horizon economically, not just with mortgages, with inflation, with just in general how the economy is doing overall, and inflation, of course, being the biggest piece of that. And we also discussed, you and I, in the past about what is the way that the Fed, which kind of helps not control rates necessarily, at least especially when it comes to mortgages, but at least guide them. Yeah. What are their tools to help fight against inflation? And what is that main tool that they have, Donnie, to keep inflation at bay?
The interest rates.
Interest rates, right? So we have two scenarios that could play out. One is possibly inventory slows down, right? Or I should say opens up. The market slows down, which is not unusual for the fall. Would you agree? When we move out of the summer into, so it's kind of a natural cycle. We experience it every year. To what extent, obviously, depends on the market. But so we know that there's going to be somewhat of a slowdown. Hopefully, open it up for more and more people. So that means prices could either settle in and not rise as much, so you can have a little bit better opportunity. Maybe there's some more houses available. Inventory is greater. Who knows? But if that happens, it's a very strong possibility that part of the reason for that as well is that interest rates are going to go up, right?
Right.
And we're not going to 9%, but if we're at 3.125 or 3.25 now and we jump up to 4 or 4.25, what does that look like, right? What impact does that have on you actually financially, right? So I wanted to kind of do just a basic idea and show on the screen here. I got a amortization calculator pulled up that I want to look at, just to give people an idea of what you could expect as far as, is it better to buy at a higher price with a lower rate, or is it better to buy at a lower price with a higher rate, right? Which scenario financially makes the most sense? Okay.
So I like where you're going with this. I like it.
Before I pull up my little screen here, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, it's the things that I want you guys to understand that are watching this is that, in general, the price of houses go up. Now, if you trash the house, that's a different thing. But if you maintain your house and you sell it, and the next person maintains that house and they sell it, and on and on and on, the value of that house is going up. So you can't really stop that, right? So in other words, okay, look, we all know house values don't go up in a straight line, right? But they do go up. So you're right. Yeah. So understand that you do have a valid argument. Psycho. You do have a valid argument that you could be catching it right here, and then it goes down, and that's where I want to buy before it goes up again. Certainly, that could be a valid argument. However, you don't know when that's going to be, and the big factor in what Mike's going to explain is you have no idea where rates are going to be when that happens. And I don't know if you know it, but there is some rhyme or reason to the market going up in interest rates and the market taking a little correction in interest rates. So what could happen is you go up and wait and wait and wait, and we're at this little bubble per se, and they go down here, and you've sorry, I got to say it, peed in the wind, so to speak. You saved $10,000 on that house, but you're paying 1% more in interest rate. That math we're fixing to do for you, and it's not good.
No, it's not. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to think of it in terms of that. And unfortunately, one of the things, I think we talked about this before, but it kind of relates. So recently, the FHFA, which is the, what do you want to call it, the governing body of like Fannie and Freddie, people probably maybe seen it in the news a little bit, just because there was a Supreme Court ruling that happened, I don't know, like a week ago or thereabouts, that said basically the director of the FHFA, who's kind of in charge of, controlling that department, used to be they would get a 5-year term and then you couldn't change that. But now it's like at the behest of the president. He's the only one that can switch out that person. And it makes a big difference depending on what their policies are. And one of the things that occurred, we'll see if it'll carry over, but with the last, his name's Mark Calabria. He's not a big, I wouldn't say that when you talk in the mortgage world, he's everybody's favorite guy.
No.
But he was appointed by Trump, and I think Biden is getting rid of him. I saw that they were letting him go. But one of the things that he put into play was that he made, and we talked about this, where he made second homes and investment properties much more expensive to purchase these days with a standard Fannie and Freddie loan, because they added some additional loan level price adjustments, whatever you want to call them, to where it's used to, you could get, say, if you were buying a second home, your primary residence, let's say the rate's 3.25, but if you buy a second home, the rate might have been 3.3 or 3.5 or something like that. It was pretty close. It wasn't that far off, right? But now, if you want to buy that same second house, and your standard in primary mortgage is say 3.125, well, now that second home might be 3.75 or 3.875. Right. They made the rates substantially higher for second home and investment properties. So what that did is limit, some of the access to those that were trying to purchase it. They tried to move it into a little more private money as opposed to Fannie and Freddie. That was the idea behind it. But the higher rates make it for higher costs. And if you're buying investment properties, especially, that affects your ability to break even and your cash flow and all that kind of stuff. So this stuff has an impact. It's just a matter of understanding to what degree, right? So I'm going to share my little screen here. Right there. Hang on. Let's see if it pops up. Can you see it?
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. So this is just a standard amortization calendar you can find online anywhere else, anywhere you want to look. Just type in amortization calculator. You can play with this kind of stuff. So I just started, with a purchase price of $300,000. You can see that right there. Okay. So this is a 30-year term, $300,000 purchase price. And then I just put 3.25 as a rate. Okay. Well, if you look at this right here, so here's your payment, $1,305, but it tells you right here, your total interest paid. Now, let's be real clear. This is over 30 years. Okay. So people see 170, like, oh my gosh, are you going to live in your house for 30 years and pay that mortgage off completely? Probably not. But, let's just assume for sake of argument, so we can compare apples to apples. That's what's going on here. So 3.25 rate, $300,000 purchase price. Your total interest would be $170,000. Can you see that right there, Donnie?
Yeah.
That number. Okay. So let's just say that, the Fed stops buying mortgage-backed securities. They start tapering is what they call it, where they just buy less and less and less and less. Well, If they buy less mortgage-backed securities, that means rates are more likely to go up. So let's just say that the rates go up to, say, 3.75. That's a half a point, right? That's not even a significant jump. It's just a half a point. But let's say that this same $300,000 house, again, is this likely? Probably not, but just for the sake of argument, this $300,000 house goes down a little bit in price because inventory opens up. It's not quite as expensive. What would be a reasonable amount that you think a purchase price would decrease, Donnie?
I mean,
best case.
10% is outlandish. So I would do $20,000.
Okay, so that's what, 60 grand, right? So that's 240. You think that three?
No. $20,000.
Oh, 20,000.
Yeah.
Right, so
let's just say you get it for 280.
All right, 280, but the rate went up half a point. Okay, So you lost 20 grand, or 20 grand went down the price, but your rate went up half a point. So what does that do? Well, that takes that same 170, and you just added, basically, I can't see it on my screen. It's set $18,000 in interest. Okay.
Yeah.
Because your price went down 20 grand, but your rate went up half a point. Okay. And that's a small adjustment. That's not even that much. It's a little bit. And I don't think if rates go up, they're not going to 3.75. They're going to go up. And I think you're probably closer to like 4.25, after a 6-month swing on this kind of stuff. So you're looking at a full point. And when you do that, now you're talking 215. You go from 170 to 215. You still have a $20,000 reduction in price. So you've got a break on the rate, on the price, but your rate was so much higher that you're still paying. It's almost, what is that, $35,000 more in interest.
Yeah, and it's freaking 60 or 70, what was it, 1305? So it's $72 more per month, and you save 20,000, and you were able to say at the water cooler that you got that house at the right time,
right,
for $20,000 less. And then the guy in the back of the water cooler is the guy that calls you out. Is like, yeah, but what was your interest rate? Right. And then you're like, oh, yeah. It's kind of like the gambler, right? Says, man, I won 10 grand at casino this week.
But he lost 20 the week before.
No, he never keeps up with how much he lost the 3 weeks before that. Yeah.
Well, to me, it's one of those things where, I guess, what do they call it? It's penny wise, pound foolish, right?
Right.
Where, I always use the example, one of the things I talk to people about when it comes to interest rates because we talk about, every bank's a little different on rates. We're all pretty much the same, but there are small differences here and there. But a lot of times it determines how much of a pain in the butt it is to get your loan done, which can be a massive pain in the behind. But, it's one of those things, you get what you pay for. But I use car dealerships as an example often, where I say, okay, I can walk into, Don Davis Auto, which is a local car dealership here in Dallas, or DFW, and I can find my car, and they're offering 2.99% rate, if you get from their finance guy, and you sit there. I mean, when you went through that process, what's the shortest amount of time you've ever spent at a car dealership like that? When you're trying to get the financing there.
2 hours, best case.
That's the short. Mine's like 4. Usually it's somewhere between. I remember one time when I was young, Susan and I bought like our second car together, and I think we were there for like 6.5 hours. It was such a beating. But the idea was that you sit there with the sales guy and you go through your little Foursquare, what you want your payment, how much money you want, what's your term. We'll try to get it there, and then they take it in the back and they shop it out to 20 different banks to try to match. What kind of crazy deal? Oh, you want 2%? You want your payment $200, and you want to have a 70? Well, nobody will accept that. So let's try again, right? So you go through this whole cycle, and you sit there, and 8 hours later, you walk out there with your car just completely beaten and exhausted and hating life, right?
You hate your car too, by the way.
Right. Or I can walk into my credit union that's right down the street from me that I've been banking with for a very long time. I can say, hey, I'm going to go buy a car today. I need a $50,000 loan or $20,000 loan or whatever it is. And they say, well, our rate's, 3.5. And I say, okay, cool. And it takes me 5 minutes to sign a form. They give me the check, and I show up to the dealership and, pay cash for the car, and I'm out in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's like, where is the importance of that process? Is it time? Is it money? Is it, what is it? And every situation is different, but you've got to examine the whole thing. You can't just make an assumption that because you're paying less that you're getting a better deal, because it's not really true.
That's exactly right. And, on top of that, what I was going to say earlier is not only did it take you forever, but they dinged your credit 13 times because they shopped it out to all those people. I have people all the time, like when they come in, I'm, hey, by the way, what are these inquiries? Well, they're all from the same guy or girl, that the finance person, but they sent it to Wells Fargo and Joe Blow freaking finance company, and that dinged your credit. So not only did you really not get a better deal, but the next time you go to finance something, buy a phone, set up electric service, finance anything in the world, then it's higher then. So you've double screwed yourself on that.
Yes. And real quick, I know this is kind of an offset here. We're taking an offshoot, but just as a general thing, I know you and I both talk to people about this every day, I'm sure, because I do it at nauseum. But speaking of the credit thing, when you were talking about why is it that pulling your credit for a car and going and getting 10 banks to pull it, which does affect your credit, why is it that that's not the same thing for mortgages? Because I know No, you tell us, because I know you get that question just as often as I do.
Well, the first thing I would say is they're shopping it out to individuals, right? To one person, sending it to all them, and they pull your credit. If you pull your credit with me and you pull it with Mike, that's 2 hits on your credit, and it's for a mortgage. You can't buy more than one house at one time. They understand that it's not going to affect you. You have to understand it's not going to affect your credit anywhere like what we call shotgunning for a financing at a car.
Right. And also, the credit bureaus, I guess really the federal government and the CFPB put into place after the financial crisis, because they wanted to make sure back in 2008 and 9, they wanted to make sure that consumers had the flexibility to talk to different lenders to be able to figure out which mortgage situation was going to be best for them. So, you can go to a car dealership and they'll pull your credit 10 times in an afternoon, and that will be that little shotgun process you're talking about. And that can have a negative impact on your credit score. But you can have your mortgage credit score pulled 4 or 5 times in a week or 2 or 3, and it all reflects as one credit pull after 30 days, or maybe even 45. I'm not sure what the number is these days, but so the point being is they want you to be able to look at your credit with different lenders to be able to see what offers you can get from those lenders, and it doesn't hurt your credit score. And so if I pull it today and Donnie pulls it today and some other person pulls it today, we will all get the exact same credit score. Now, I would say that if I pulled it today and Donnie pulled it tomorrow, would we have the same score? Probably, but it's not 100%, because every day there's a chance for something else to show up on your report. And if your score drops, and I had this conversation with somebody yesterday, because they were like, oh, I know I had my credit pull with so-and-so yesterday or 2 weeks ago, a week ago, and I had it with you, but yours is lower. And I'm like, well, I promise you that it didn't get lower because I pulled it. There's something else that was on there. And once we went through it, there was a collection that showed up that wasn't on a previous report, and her credit card balance had gone up from the last time because they had just reported. So,
and why is your interest rate a quarter higher? Dadgone. Well, you didn't pay your bill, man. It was eventually going to come up with the other guy.
Right. So that's just a little side note, but the having us look at your credit score versus going into buy a car is 2 very different things. So don't confuse those things, for the same deal, because they're different. But ultimately, again, the end of the day is you have to understand that when you take out a loan, okay, especially one that you're stretching out over 30 years, okay, the rate plays a bigger role in many cases than the price. Okay, the price plays a role, but it's not as impactful as the rate, especially when you look at it on the scale of what's about to change to what degree. Is a $250,000 house going to go down to $225 in a week? Probably not. Is it going to go from $300 to $350 in a week? Maybe. It's possible depending on what the market bears out, but it's more likely right now that the rate is going to go up in the next 6 to 12 months, and that you're going to see a sharp incline in rates, because we've got to battle things like inflation. We've got to get a little bit more stability to the housing market, in the sense that we have to make it to where, there's more inventory, so it's not so heavily weighted to the sellers. So those things have to happen in order for us to have a truly healthy market. And the rate impact is going to be much greater and much more likely than the price impact. So again, what we always say, and we seem like broken records on this thing, is when is the best time to buy, Donnie?
Right now. And I want to add to that too. Okay, so you're waiting for that little dip in the housing appreciation market. Right. More than likely, if houses across America in your market start to go down, something big has happened. And I'm not picking on one thing or the other, but a World Trade Center, a Great Recession, something like that's happened. And I don't know if you know it, but usually when something like that happens, it affects the economy. And now there's 25% less jobs. That may be your job. You may be waiting to buy that house to get a lower price on the house. Again, not knowing where interest rates are going. And because that market fell, you may not have a job and you can't do anything anyway. So, I mean, you got to understand that there's so many factors involved to really hit that bullseye and find that sweet spot. And that's as far as the market, the rate, your job, income, inflation, economy, all that. Just understand that there's no better time than right now. We talked about it last week about the couple that wanted to buy land, right? And they waited and they found one, but God, it's just too high. Oh, it's $50,000 an acre out in the woods. This is crazy. Well, sure enough, they waited 2 years. Rates went way down. It's now time, right? And the land is now worth $80,000 an acre. I mean, right now is the time for sure.
Always is.
Always is. Always.
Well, and that's the thing is, that's the other discussion that I have from time to time with buyers that are renting is, they're waiting for that sweet spot, that perfect moment. It's like, look, every day that you wait, there's a cost. Okay. You are paying rent. Prices are going up. Rates could possibly go up. The house that the dream house that you wanted was there and disappeared in 5 days. All of these things are impacts. So there's a cost to waiting. It never hurts to keep looking and say, even the ones, right now it's hard if you have an FHA loan or a VA loan that you're trying to get those homes or those offers accepted when you're competing against cash and conventional loans. It's tough. I'm not going to, I don't know how it is in your area, but it's hard. But that doesn't mean you quit. That means you keep trying. You have to keep looking. You have to because every day you pay rent, you're paying for someone else's wealth. That's what you're doing. You're not paying into your own future. You're paying into someone else's. So if you want to get out of that race, get out of that renting, get out of that constant moving, really have something that you can call your own. You can't, the longer you wait, the worse it gets. And you can always adjust, and you can refinance when rates dip and all that kind of stuff can happen. So if you bought it and you had, look, we had plenty of people, what was it, 2018, I think, when rates were kind of touching on 5%. They were close. Yeah. I think some cases they got there. But we had plenty of people that bought houses at that time. Rates were really high. They bought houses and then turned around, 2.5 years later, and we refied them to 2.625, So all that stuff is always there. But if you don't own that home, if it's not yours, then you don't have opportunity to do that.
And by the way, if they say, yeah, Mike, but you had closing costs when you had to do that. Yeah, they gave up $4,000 to get 90.
Right.
Get your calculator on the screen and do $4,000 negative. It costs that, and $90,000 positive. It's pretty easy math.
It's pretty easy math, pretty easy stuff. So anyway, just wanted to touch base on that today, just to kind of do a little chalkboard lesson, I guess, on what makes the most important. And again, it always boils down to don't wait. Just figure out what you can do. It may not be the best circumstances, but it's always better than continuing to rent and waiting and incurring the cost of that over time.
Got it. Hey, as we conclude this episode, I want to give you a snippet for your main man to put out on the website. So we're gonna snip this part at some point. I
Okay,
want to know. Here's what I want to know, Mike. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Maybe.
I would like to know what your next family unit of four, your family, what
Mhm.
y'all's next event that y'all have, a vacation, going to a water park. What's your next thing? And then I have a follow-up question.
Well, so we were just in Gulf Shores, Alabama for a baseball tournament.
Okay.
We have another baseball tournament, but it's here locally next week. And then we're actually we're going to Cabo San Lucas towards
Nice.
the middle of I guess towards the end of July. We have a friend of ours that works for what do you call it? The Four Seasons, and they had some like really special hotel prices. It's only like a 2 or 3 day trip. It's pretty quick, but just on a weekend. But we're just taking everybody and going to Mexico for 2 or 3 days.
Okay, first of all, you don't take your kids to Cabo. You take them to Cancun. You take
Well, yeah,
just your wife to Cabo. But
right.
here's my follow-up question.
Okay.
Two things. Who plans the trip? Like Mandy and I were talking about this recently. Like gets the flight, make sure the hotels work, make sure everybody's got passport. Who's in charge of that?
Okay, so we have two. We both have roles. Okay, typically speaking. All right. So Susan's role is she, gets the flights booked, gets the hotel booked, rents the car if we need it. Make sure everything's kind of like when we went to Gulf Shores for the baseball tournament, we stayed in like a little condo type of thing. So she made sure we had groceries for the condo so we could eat.
Yeah.
And, so she gets it all there, but. Like the military, when we get boots on the ground, okay, then it's my show. Then it becomes, all right, what are we doing? Where are we going? What's our timelines? What do we have planned? Because she gets us there, and then I make sure once we get there that we have a good time. And it was funny in the beginning. We went to Disney World one time. This was years ago, and we went with my brother and my sister-in-law and her 2 kids, and so we got there. And like I'm vacation, Nazi. I'm like, we're gonna do this, Like we're here, we're having fun. Unless it's the beach, then you kind of chill. But Disney World, like this is how it's gonna go. So like the first couple days, I'm like, all right, we're going here, and I'm taking them all around. There's like 10 of us, and I'm like, we're going to this place, and then this time it's gonna be that. And by the end of the day, everybody's just like, oh my gosh, And so the next morning we get up, and my sister-in-law is kind of like, okay, like, can we just kind of relax and see where the day takes us? And I'm like, sure, absolutely. No problem. Of course I'm a little bitter about it, but I'm like, yeah, no problem. So we get about an hour into it, and about an hour into it, we're just sitting on a bench by, it's a Small World ride or whatever. And I'm just sitting there, and they're all kind of like, well, where do you guys want to go? And like, I don't know. Where do you want to go? And I don't know. Do we eat yet? So we're sitting there for about 45 minutes, and I'm just kind of sitting there. And then my sister-in-law looks at me, and she goes, all right, fine. Go ahead. What do we got to do? I'm like, all right, great. Let's go.
You're back in charge. So we're kind of like that too. But my question, and Mandy and I are totally different in like our roles and whatnot. But my question to you is, what happens? Okay, so let's just talk about you and old Suze in general. So she makes the plans, and then you execute when you get there, right?
Correct.
So where does the argument come in? You say to Susan, well, you shouldn't have planned it like this, or Susan says to you, I planned it like this, and now you're changing and doing that. I'm curious because every family love hard, play hard, fight hard. That's part of it. So where does the riff come in? That's what I'm dying to know.
I hate to say it. Look, my wife and I get into some knockdown drag out. So let me preface that. Okay. But in that scenario, we really don't fight too much because she understands that I'm going to do this, and I understand that she's going to do that. Now,
okay.
I'm kind of a jerk sometimes. I fully admit it. And I'll have my little comments about.
Susan's behind the screen right now going, yeah.
Like we'll walk into maybe the hotel room, or I'll walk into something, and I'm like, okay, this is the one. This is the one you picked. Like this was the
That's
one
what I was looking for.
And she'll just give me a look like, you have something to say? And I'm like,
why didn't you do it?
I'm good. I just wanted to make sure. Was there a reason? Did the other one, was it not available? Like,
I love shower curtains. They're my favorite.
Right. So there's a little bit of that. And then occasionally when we're out and about doing stuff, she'll have to kind of, stop short and say, hey, look, why don't we take a 30-minute break and relax for a little bit, Mr. Go, and let's just let the kids rest. And I'm like, we're here. We got to have a good time. Let's go. And she's like,
we've only got so much time.
Slow down, Turbo. Like, let's take it easy. Okay. So we really and truly, we don't fight too much when we get on those trips like that because, we're having a good time and trying to really, we mostly just yell at the kids. That's pretty much what we get to take all of our energy and anger out on them, so that's really where most
feel free to use this down the road. But I heard it and kind of coined the phrase, kind of twisted it a little bit. A vacation with your family is purchasing memories.
Right.
You're literally writing a check so you can get some memories. And sometimes it's miserable. Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's in the middle. But sometimes it's miserable. Like, oh, my God, this is like work. I mean, this is literally like work. When the two kids are fighting, you can't get them to shut up. And it's,
I think you're certainly correct about that. But I will say that my experience has been that the more miserable the trip, the more I typically remember it. And you don't even, I don't know that you remember it being miserable. I think you just remember what happened. And I think it's one of those things where you're just like, that was sucked, but this was funny. And then this happened and then this happened, So there's always a little bit of that. And now, you probably experienced it a little differently, or I should say, you've already experienced it, but like my daughter now is, she's a teenager. I used to joke for a long time, for a few years, that, being a tween, but now she's actually 18. She's about to be 14 here in a couple months. And so on our last trip that we just went on with the baseball team and did her whole thing, was at the beach and all that, she's out running around, God knows what, she's with some other girls there. I mean, they were fine, but you know what I mean? Just they want to be by themselves and they want to go do whatever. And my wife's just losing her mind,
Oh, it's terrible.
She can't be running around doing that. She's only 14 years old.
I watched Dateline that last week, and you're not going to believe what happened on there.
Right.
Yeah. Well, if it makes you feel any better, they come back around. Abby and Gracie, I'm talking to you. The adult child relationship, and I say adult, over 18, in college, I got two in college. Yeah. It is it's right up there with that 7-8-year-old relationship where I really like that because I was Superman, right? I am, Dad can do no wrong. Dad's going to Walmart. Can I go, Mom? Like, like, can you imagine your 14-year-old getting excited? Like, I want to go to Walmart with Mikey. Let's go.
Right.
Never.
No. She's way too cool to do anything with us anymore. And all we get is aggressive eye rolls. That's our favorite, it's like, oh my God,
Listen, I wish I could find this picture, but they said, what was it? It was a meme or whatnot. And they had taken a mannequin, and it was like not an adolescent, but definitely a teenager. It wasn't like a woman. And it was a teenage girl mannequin. And she was sitting there with her shoulders shrugged like this, with her head down, like, ooh. They put clothes on her so they'd see what your daughter would look like in these particular clothes, going, oh, I hate this. This is horrible.
Yeah, everything's a beating. They hate everything. They're nothing's fun. Everything sucks. I mean, that's just what it is. And now I'm going to see, because, I have a boy, my son's, he's about to turn 12. And so we're going to get soon into the teenage boy years. But from what I remember from the boy side, I know you had two girls, so you don't have this, but basically they just go into their room and disappear. And you never really see them anymore. From what I understand from my other friends, like they're just gone. You're like, do you have a son? Yeah, he's like 16. Where's he at? I don't know. He's in his room. He's just in there. That's all he does. He doesn't come out. He doesn't say anything. He comes out to get snacks and then shuffles back up and, does his thing. So,
Mike, I didn't have any boys, but just knock on the door before you go in. We'll close it at that.
Well, it's so funny you say that. So I always tell my wife, I was like, look, I know you think that there are no secrets and there are no closed doors, and this house is your house and you're going to determine.
Yes.
I'm like, however, when you bust in, you can't unsee what you see.
Prepare yourself. God,
my
we're
sug-
putting this live on Facebook right now.
That's fine. We're not saying anything. Everybody knows what we're talking about. But I tell her, like, look, always knock. You have to knock. Just knock.
I'm coming in.
You can knock and then open the door.
Yeah.
But give them like 5 seconds. Just
knock.
save yourself. That's really for you. It's not for him. It's for you.
There is somebody right now that's rolling around on the floor in a belly laugh right now. And I think it may be Donna in the other room right now because she's got teenage boys. Anyway, hey, great job, Mike. I love your math to tell people that, hey, buy a house, just buy a house. It's time. And I know it sucks. You got to get in there and kind of arm wrestle with everybody to get the house. The other agents arm wrestling with the listing agent. It's just kind of part of it. Stay the course. Keep the bow steady, and you will get a house. And there will come a time when you will look back and thank Mr. Mike and Donnie and say, I'm so glad I pulled the trigger now. Again, back to the example, they were the couple that was upset that the land was $50,000 an acre and they waited and it sold for $90,000 an acre. So just to understand, that's part of the deal. And Mike, I'm glad I got you a little snippet to use this next week. Right. It's going to be, Susan may not like it, by the way.
Hey, I do want to, next week, though, I want to talk a little bit about some of this because I'm fully excited that we're actually getting into real football season. We haven't had a real football season in 2 years, so I'm very excited. And I know you are too. Full
stands, the whole deal. It is going to be big. And, I mean, we may be a little premature because but we'll talk about it, and then we'll cover it again when it actually is really ramping up. Because, I mean, a real football fan like Mike and myself get excited in early July. Most football fans get excited in September. So we don't want to bore anybody, but we'll start talking football because
we gotta get there.
I'm excited about the Vols throwing it around. And I mean, I don't care if we score 7 points less than the other one, but we both get over 50 points because that'll be just at least fun. At least it'll be fun to watch losing if we're going to do that.
Yep. All right.
Y'all make it a great day.
All right, brother. Be a great human. See you later.
I was waiting for it. Be a great human.